book, and so probably they ran the name by Pierre Boulle, and he said, "Yeah, fine, Michael Wilson's great," and so Michael Wilson did it. He kept the feel of Serling's script and the feel of Serling's movie, but again, it wasn't identical. And originally, when it was Serling's draft, they were intending for Edward G. Robinson to play Dr. Zaius, and they actually did screen tests from Serling's script of of Edward G. Robinson in the ape makeup, acting with Charlton Heston, and these were really fun screen tests. And James Brolin actually plays one of the other apes, if memory serves. It's been a little while since I've seen these screen tests, but you can get the Planet of the Apes DVD or Blu-ray, and you can see these screen tests. And Edward G. Robinson was really good in the role, and it was a very different ape makeup. And they've basically patterned the ape makeup or the ape designs in this comic book, in this graphic novel adaptation after those screen tests. So it's a fun variation. And these apes are going to the movies and driving cars and smoking cigarettes. And so again, here's sort of, if you can see that, that's kind of more the version of the screen test. And so so with Rod's version, they shot the screen test, but then Edward G. Robinson fell ill and couldn't do the movie. But later he acted in Soylent Green opposite Charlton Heston. It was Edward G. Robinson's last film, and he and Charlton Heston have a great chemistry, and Edward G. Robinson's quite wonderful in that film. So it gives you an inkling of what it might have been like in if the two of them had starred in Planet of the Apes, alongside each other. And Kim Hunter, Serling knew her from the live TV days. She had been in Requiem for a Heavyweight, the TV version, and and Roddy McDowall had been in Twilight Zone. And so Serling, this was a cast of a lot of actors that Serling had worked with and knew. James Whitmore's in it, Claude Akins, they were both in Twilight Zone. And Rod may have had some bittersweet feelings about the final film that came out, but of course it was a hit movie and spawned a lot of other Planet of the Apes films. But another way you can kind of get a sense of what Serling's vision might have been like is some years ago I was contacted by someone, and they mentioned that a fan, upon learning that Rod Serling had written both Twilight Zone and Planet of the Apes, re-edited Planet of the Apes, the movie, into a half-hour black and white Twilight Zone episode where he found narrations from Twilight Zone episodes that fit the story of three astronauts lost on an alien planet, and edited it down to a half-hour black and white episode. And it really works. It's really fun. And so I contacted the director and I complimented him, and the one who had edited it down, and I said, would you like me to write a bogus chapter of the Twilight Zone companion stating how this episode never got aired and how it got translated into and expanded into a 2-hour movie? And he said, sure. So I actually wrote a bogus chapter of the Twilight Zone companion as though this was real, and it got out onto the internet. I put it on the internet, and I had to pull it down off the internet because people were starting to believe it. So, but if you go to, I've added a link in the new Twilight Zone companion, the new 3rd edition, but if you go to markzicree.com/Twilight Zone, you can watch that Rod Serling Planet of the Apes Twilight Zone episode and read my fake chapter of how this came about. Totally whole cloth. And it's very, very fun. But meantime, you can actually, buy this and buy the Twilight Zone Companion 3rd edition, and you can just sit and have a great, great, great time with Rod Serling and all his brilliance and all of his authentic outrage at human insanity and stupidity, and his compassion for the human heart and the human striving for equality and belonging and kindness, the triumph of kindness over cruelty. Rod was an amazing writer and one of a kind. We'll never see his kind again. But it's funny because it started me thinking about other great science fiction scripts that didn't see the light of day, and it'd be wonderful to see graphic novel adaptations of them. Among them, Frank Darabont's script of Fahrenheit 451, which Frank was good enough to send to me, and I read and I really liked, and it'd be fun to see that as a graphic novel. Certainly Neil Blomkamp's sequel to Aliens that got the plug was pulled on that because Ridley Scott wanted to do Prometheus and then Alien Covenant, but Neil Blomkamp did sketches. It was basically going to be a sequel that took place right after Aliens left off. Aliens is one of my favorite films, and there were some. It would basically have reunited the characters of Ripley and Newt and the Michael be in character. And so, it would have been great fun. So I'd love to see a graphic novel of that. Another great graphic novel would be an adaptation of Ray Bradbury's screenplay of The Martian Chronicles, which again I got a copy of and read and talked to Ray about. And basically, after To Kill a Mockingbird, the director of that film and Gregory Peck, the star of that film, hired Ray to write an adaptation of Martian Chronicles, and it was going to be the movie they both did after To Kill a Mockingbird. Sadly, of course, again, it proved too expensive beyond sort of the level of visual effects at that point. This was around 1963, 64, and so it was never made, but it's a wonderful script, and a graphic novel of that would certainly be cool. And then, of course, Guillermo del Toro's screenplay of Mountains of Madness, which was going to star Ron Perlman and Tom Cruise. And again, the studio felt it would be too expensive after 18 months of development. James Cameron was going to produce it. Guillermo wrote it and was going to direct it, but that would be great to see as a graphic novel too. And also they say that Tarantino's written a Star Trek script. I don't know if they're planning to make that script, but if not, again, a graphic novel would be cool. And also James Cameron's first science fiction movie script that didn't get made, Xenogenesis, which he did a lot of illustrations for. If you get his history of science fiction book based on the TV series he just did that I'm in, you can see a lot of the illustrations he did, which are very cool and had resonances that led to Terminator and to a lot of his films in one way or another, certainly Avatar. So that's sort of it for now, but it's cool. Graphic novels are a very fun art form, and I've just written the script for the first Space Command comic book, which we're going to have coming out very soon, with a cover by Ian McCaig, the great Ian McCaig, and a back cover by William Stout, and wonderful interior illustrations by Tahani Farr and others. So we'll talk very, very soon. Thanks a lot. Many more Mr. Sci-Fis to come. If you haven't subscribed to Mr. Sci-Fi, do so. If you want to buy shares in Space Command or find out more about Space Command, you can check out the Mr. Sci-Fi videos. You can watch the first half hour of Space Command on Mr. Sci-Fi. And that's about it for now. Talk to you again soon. Bye-bye.